Hello everybody, it's Refresh and I'm here to take a look at the Counter Surge Challenger deck for Magic the Gathering. This is from the 2018 line of Challenger decks, and inside is a 60 card deck and a 15 card sideboard to take into the game. This is based on the +1/+1 counters deck that was running around at the time, and I'm going to open it up and take a look at what's inside. Alright, this counts as the deck box. It comes with a spin down life counter, which is nice, and a insert. Then there is a quick reference guide, which is the usual junk that you remember, not entirely needed for people that are probably picking up this sort of product. And then we also have an ad card, which points you at a website that you can type into your browser, I guess. We have our main deck and our sideboard divider to separate them. That's the main deck. And the sideboard. Going to play this deck against its peers and see how it holds up. I'll be back after that to let you know what I think about the deck. So I had a chance to play with this deck a bit, and I have some thoughts. The first thing is, where this deck excels is right in its name, Counter Surge. And so all the cards that have to do with counter surging are great. The Winding Constrictor works really well with the rest of this 2-drop package in terms of Long Tusk Hub and Glint-Sleeve Siphoner to give you extra counters, whether we're talking energy or we're talking +1/+1 counters. Either way, the energy lets you draw extra cards off the Glint-Sleeve Siphoner, which can also get additional energy from attacking, as well as coming into the battlefield. And the Long Tusk Hub also feeds energy, and that energy can be used to draw cards or get counters. There's also several other cards here that help enable the counter thing, like the Rishkar Premium Renegade and the Verdurous Gear Hulk, as well as the Walking Ballista. And when it comes to that, it's very powerful to have these cards go off, and then to be further enhanced by either Rishkar or the Verdurous Gear Hulk. That said, there are some choices in this deck that I don't fully understand. For example, the Dream Stealers, while they're annoying, and if you can put some counters on them, they can have some kind of impact, it also doesn't really feed into the existing theme that well. And yes, the Dream Stealer and the Scrap Heap Scrounger are recursive threats. I don't really know that recursive threats is exactly what this deck wants. I suppose that if all your creatures get removed, then it would feel bad, but at the same time, I think getting more synergy with what's already in this deck might be a better call in particular. The other questionable elements here include Gonti, Lord of Luxury. At the 4-drop slot, I don't know why it's not Bristling Hydra that's there, because Bristling Hydra also plays on the Energy Encounters theme and is a wonderfully defensive threat that can survive everything but sweepers because of its hexproof ability. So Gonti, who is a good card, don't get me wrong, doesn't feel like it's as appropriate a card in this slot in particular. Also, we have a removal suite that is okay. Walk the Plank is slow, being a sorcery. I would kind of wish that there were more Fatal Pushes, but at the same time, Fatal Push doesn't work as well in this deck because there's not a whole lot of sacrifice synergy here. So I understand why it's been limited to this deck, but this is kind of a slow removal spell as well. Hour of Glory is kind of a weird inclusion as well, because yes, it's kind of removal that can get rid of anything, and it works really well against gods, but at the same time, it's very expensive. And so I kind of wish that there was something else here that was a better fit. The other thing that I don't get is why there's only one Walking Ballista. I think this is very strong in this deck, and I would gladly have more Walking Ballistas over Scrap Heap Scroungers or Dream Stealers in particular. So that I don't fully understand. I like the Ether Hubs. I do think that this deck needs non-tap mana sources. So the Foul Orchards, I understand that they have to keep the value of this deck down a bit, but I think even one or two of an untapped mana source would really help this deck along, because it is a bit more on the aggressive side, and it does need to get started really early. Now, fortunately, almost everything is on the 2-drop slot, so if you get one of these on turn 1, that's not the worst thing in the world. But if you pick one up later and you want to play something bigger, it's going to prove to be a bit more of a problem. I guess the Hash-Up Oases are kind of freebies, so that's fine. So in the end, I find that the main deck is good in the ways that it's really good, but I think all the supporting cards could have been improved upon. And so that is my thoughts with the main deck. Let's also talk about the sideboard, and it's something that relates to the general issues with these challenger decks. First of all, some of the sideboard stuff is really straightforward. You have artifact and enchantment removal in the Appetite for the Unnatural and the Slice and Twain, also in Dispossess. But some of these are a little less obvious. So there's additional removal in the Die Young, and I guess in the cartouches as well. And it's not entirely clear when you're supposed to use these. I think that the deck, especially if it's suited towards players that want to get competitive but don't really have much experience in Magic, needs some sort of deck tech to explain what all these cards are supposed to do in particular and what decks to use them against. I personally know from playing Magic enough that Duress you use against control decks. You'd want to use the cartouches against aggro decks because it has lifelink and it can kill or shrink aggro creatures. And so I understand that. And this I bring in against more decks that need more removal. Sure, I get that, but I think the Cartouche and the Duress, and especially the Lifecrafter's Bestiary, which I'm not entirely certain what it's supposed to be used against. Is it supposed to be used against control? I don't know. So I think some sort of explanation in the box with what these cards are supposed to be doing would be quite helpful. Outside of that, I found this deck to be relatively fun. I just wish that it had a little bit better of a finisher besides the single Walking Ballista, because I suppose the idea is that Diverter's Gearhulks are supposed to go big and help your team smash, but I would have liked perhaps a couple more serious threats. And that could have just easily been the Bristling Hydras in place of the Gonti Lord of Luxuries, or a couple more Walking Ballistas in place of the Dream Stealers or something. And I think that would have made this deck much stronger. But as it is, I think this is fine, and those of you who like getting a whole bunch of counters and making your things grow will find something to enjoy here. But I do think that this product in particular really needs an explanation of how the deck is supposed to work in the box so that a player can open this box, read that, and then know what some of the more mysterious cards are supposed to do, specifically in the sideboard. So that's my thoughts regarding Counter Surge. Let me know what your thoughts were if you had a chance to play with this deck a bit in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.